Hey everyone, David Michael Phelps here for another episode of Working Man. Today in Working Man, we're joined by a real-life cobbler, and I can't tell you how long I've waited to speak that sentence. Petr Kovarik is a bootmaker and owner of Liberty Footwear in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and today he's going to tell us about how he sees his work as an opportunity to serve those around him, and how trusting in God in everything you do is at the core of work. Petr is a great guy with a great story. I think you're really going to like listening to him. So without further ado, here is Petr Kovarik.
My name is Petr Kovarik, born in Czechoslovakia many years ago, came to America in 1998. After meeting my wife on the way to US in 1994, she said on the plane right next to me. And 10 hours later, we knew something was brewing. And came 98 with the idea to just study management and business, and then come back to Czech Republic where we lived. And by and by, the good Lord, meant otherwise. So instead of studying, I got a job offer from nearby Wolverine. We stayed in Chicago, and Wolverine went as far, Wolverine Worldwide at that time, offering me also management training inside the company, and offered to pay for the part-time management, studies. And so that offer I took them upon and went to Michigan State on weekends, 2000, 2001, and then went through the product development roles in the company, and along the way kids were being born, and we were blessed, and so stayed in Grand Rapids. We like the place, like the state, and like the people, and will hopefully, stay for a long, long time. But, who knows, the good Lord, moved us, and he stayed, with us with various moves, where we live, what we do, etc. So I worked for Wolverine for many years, 17 years, but after maybe 10, years or so, I wasn't happy anymore. For some reason, and so we're thinking what to do. Didn't want to move to another state for another job in shoe industry, because this is what I would like to do my whole life, be involved in shoemaking. And through Wolverine it was in the office jobs, but then the idea came to make my own, and by and by, here we are with Liberty Footwear Shoe Factory 5 years later, and making boots, and hopefully serving people the way that they appreciate from grounds up.
I remember I first heard of Liberty maybe 2 years ago, it was, and it was just in passing. Someone had mentioned the fact that there was a fella who was making boots on the Northwest side. And the first thing that struck me as I realized to myself that I had never, probably in my life, given thought to the fact that that was something that, in a way, people did. In other words, what I mean is, like, you just get used to mass production, right? That's how products come to us, mass production. And it occurred to me, like, oh, well, no, I guess it wouldn't have to be that. I found it fascinating. It was probably a year later that I found my way in here. How did you get started making boots? I mean, where does one go to start down that path?
Well, my father was a shoemaker, and so I followed his trade, and so went to shoemaking high school, as I said, shoemaking college, and during the summers, and the schooling, the schooling system, educational system in Czechoslovakia at that time was 10 months of school from September 1st until June 30th, and July, August, all my years again in high school and college, I worked, during the summer. I was actually well off as a student, low taxes, etc., on your income, and I worked on a assembly line and learned many operations, and also was exposed to what's going on with, with the social interaction with older people, with people who were making a living, with some who supported the system, the communist regime, most that didn't. And so after I graduated from college, I was working in product development and then in purchasing materials, actually for a multinational, at that time, number one global shoe company, Bata, BATA. The founder started his business in a shop making, shoes himself, and that was in 1892, I believe, 1892, 1893. Then grew the business over the 40 years into a global business that was nationalized by communists in 1945 after the Second World War. And so I was, in various office roles, which obviously gives you different perspective than being on an assembly line. At the same time, it gives you an edge over others who perhaps, knew a lot more theoretically, but didn't have that, practical experience. So I had opportunity to travel around the world, buying materials from various vendors, including North America, South America, Europe. Haven't been for that company in Asia, but throughout Europe as well. And so even here at Wolverine, it was office, and I could have an impact with specifications of materials, coming up with new ways in assembly, in improvements, in costing, in finding better economical solutions, and meeting various vendors. But something was missing. Was it midlife crisis? I don't know. In any way, the company turned from a manufacturer where many people held lifetime jobs into more, say, transient company where management at the brand level was changing and was bringing different ideas, and almost all of those ideas involved just buying and selling of the shoes and boots rather than making. I was, having all sorts of ideas that were no longer, say, compatible with where Wolverine, the big company, corporation, was going. And so despite, traveling to Asia and visiting factories there, I, had that yearning for making. I didn't know that I would end up, myself, that would happen later. Point is that I wanted to put something together, and that was really how I think, to be honest, because I prayed a lot about it. Prayed about it with the family who were 7-1 against it, and prayed about it, with my confessor and with actually spiritual directors at Regnum Christi at that time, and went to retreats, several, where prayed long hours, and somehow the idea stayed on. And so I was promised investment and help from fellow minded Wolverine employees, and actually, so I resigned a year and a half before I actually left the company. I resigned, handed a resignation letter, and then continued with the development and preparation, whichever was feasible. Point is, then I left, the company, and still mentally, that's the hard thing. Wasn't ready. I asked the good Lord for guidance, prayed about it a lot, and when I left Wolverine, which was my a provider of really good financial reward for me and the family, and wasn't ready to start the company. And so I did consulting for various other companies, including well-known work boots and casual, shoe companies here in the U.S. and in China, and that consulting actually went on for about 9 months, but it dried out. And the opportunities, I went to visit potential customers, retailers who would buy the boots that would be built or assembled in America, and I got orders actually. 6 months, 7 months after leaving the company, I got orders, yet still didn't have the funding. Okay, so one by one, actually, those who promised help, who were excited to, be part of this whole venture, backed off. And so I was actually really facing tough times in the spring of 2016, but continued with the help of the family here and in the Czech Republic, surprisingly, and with the help of some unknown, say, investors or benefactors, and so finally. As the Lord says, seek the kingdom of God first, and everything else will be given to you. And I'm not, citing exact, the verse, from the Gospels. But the point is that, throughout actually these last 5-6 years, when faced, with tough decisions, whether it was organizational, financial, logistical, personnel. You pray and you are down and you say, Lord, I have no solution. What do I do? Well, customers come, people offer help, space for the factory shows up. Hey, we still have this machinery for sale. Are you interested? All of a sudden, when you give it, up as your project and leave it, on the Lord, help me understand, help and lead me, then when you have better clarity. I face these moments weekly, actually. And I have to say, for now, I feel it's where the Lord actually leads me. As tough as it is for my family that were used to, certain income, certain financial security, certain time that I gave them, certain perks, like travel, and all those fly miles, airline miles and hotel, free nights, etc. Still, I can tell you, it's rewarding to see that you can set to do something where you feel, when you look back, you had very little effect, on it. Despite all your experience, resolve, strength, knowledge, etc. And you see good Lord working, okay? Whether it's sometimes through obstacles, but sometimes, when you see, you make a product or something, service that helps people. Sometimes it's making boots. Sometimes people bring you something that is too tight for them, and so we stretch the boots for them. Or they come, can you fix this simple thing? I can't seem to find, somebody willing to take on it. We don't advertise repair services, but we can help. Sometimes, yesterday, somebody from the neighborhood actually stopped by, needed piece of leather to repair rocking horse for grandkids, okay? I have means, and, through what I got, through fortune or through, some good decisions, sometimes through luck and mistakes, I can see that it's helping and serving. And that, actually satisfies me a lot, I can tell you. Yes, of course, when we make a good product that people like, that sells, rewards us, that we can make more and, and sell boots, to more customers. Oh yes, that obviously is the purpose of the enterprise. But when you find that through what you do, you can help address some people's issues, whether it's with their feet or with their heart and mind. Sometimes, people come here and they have all sorts of boots. We have choices, right? We compete with so much that's on the market. And sometimes they need stretch this, make it tighter, can you replace the laces, something small where you can see that, yes, for that particular person, this particular moment, you made a difference. I can tell you, as I go through life and get older and older, that's actually all that matters. Yes, of course, financially at times, it's a struggle, but anytime I can tell you, when you not only ask the Lord for help, but say, your will. I mean, I need, this order. I need this machinery. I need, that component. I need to really, sell and get paid. When it's your will, then, I may want to sell and ship, many boots. We ended up, I can admit to some sins, ended up, working on Sunday. I remember our first order for Amazon 3 years ago. I brought family here on Sunday because I was to travel next day, and we had to ship boots that we would get paid for so we could stay, afloat. Thousands of dollars worth of orders. I, worked here all Sunday throughout the night, flew, abroad Monday morning. The boots shipped on Tuesday. We had the money on Wednesday. And guess what? 3 years later, I got some of those boots back because they didn't sell. And I pushed my way, Lord, let me show you. I know what you want me to do. No. And yet we found other customers that say paid us, for example, that we didn't have to work, and do some crazy, sinful things, that you look back and question, why did I not listen, that voice of the Holy Spirit, So in many ways, I can tell you, for me, a spiritual enterprise as much as basically shoemaking enterprise.
Yeah. So I hear you talk about making this move from a company where some of the emphasis was just on sort of the selling and buying of things. But I can tell just from the time that I've spent in your shop here, the detail and the care you have for the crafting of these things, the making of these things. So what I hear you say is there was maybe this desire to start making again, right, as opposed to managing making or whatever. What is it about the making that you find so attractive or important?
You can touch, so many things. You're, in the office, and obviously you send emails. You can draw pictures. You can even try some shoes on. But you are feeding somebody across half the world information, and then expect something to come back that meets your expectations. Throughout that product development cycle, it may or may not come to fruition the way you want. So many of the new generation of developers, designers, etc., know about the shoemaking, literally just from classroom or from YouTube videos, etc. And then are so excited to come and visit the factories in the Far East. Well, one thing is to visit there for a couple hours, each day during your 2-week trip or 1-week trip. And quite another is, to actually try and see, spend time on it. And if it doesn't work first time, second time, third time, is the problem design, material, workmanship, equipment? So many inputs. And I can tell you from deep down admiration for America's inventions. The people who came here literally, in most cases, empty-handed. just with their hands, their minds, their hearts. And they gave the world so much. Inventing things, thinking of things, and inventing services, inventing processes, machinery, materials. And I have had admiration for this, since the days, in communist Czechoslovakia in 80s, studying in high school, and yet, Czech shoemakers gave the world a lot as well. But a lot of technologies actually in the communist Czechoslovakian shoe factories were from the U.S. For cutting, for sewing, for assembly. And I studied reports actually of business trips of the top officials who were approved by the highest ranking leaders of the party, who could travel to the West, to conduct business, sometimes sell, many times buy. And so I could see, reading those reports, what was going on. And there I came here in 98 again, with 4 suitcases, really, nothing but the ideas. And I could learn here many things as well. I could, offer my perspective, to Wolverine, and hopefully it was valued, for those 17 years. But at the same time, I saw the decline in the practical knowledge and tinkering with, trying, things. How can we, do it differently? Does it work? Those things that were imagined, that were dreamt of, that were actually put to design, will they work? And, here I can touch, feel, and adjust. Part of the, problem that actually was not a positive move of the outsourcing of production to cheap labor countries. So the good news for American consumer was affordability, innovation, and improved comfort, okay, and the wide variety that was offered. But the what was lost, the negative side was that you lost the customized, fit. You had product that was made nationwide, okay. And so what I am trying actually to come up with, we first started with lots of orders for Southern California. When I visited in 2015, 2016, and then 2017, actually, dry weather. They had issues, with no rain, drought. So our first 7 boots, actually, out of those 7, 5 were not waterproof. And why? Because California didn't ask for them. And the 2 waterproof that we had actually then became bestsellers for us in the Midwest. Why? Because as we were seeking other customers early on, besides the Southern California or Southwest in general, the northeastern customers in New England as well as the Midwest, they asked for waterproof, and we didn't have. And so we had to learn that we have to use, if we want to be local, we have to use waterproof materials. And then, for example, also New England, again, when traveled there, we started with a flat so-called wedge outsole. The New England would not sell anything like that. Flat bottom outsoles, no. They wanted luggy outsoles that had, heel, grip. Why? Because it's, wet. They like outdoors a lot more. So here, serving local customers, we realize, okay, for these people, flat bottom outsole will work, wedge. For those, we need to do a heeled version. We have now many customers who actually come with different left and right feet. And that's, what we can offer, like no one else in town or in West Michigan or in Midwest, because we've had customers from Indiana and those who call us now or contact us online who are seeking, like they were used to, or their parents were used to, get shoes made just for them. Yeah. This country had so many small shoe shops, literally that were making shoes that were well built and at the same time affordable and long lasting. So they could be inherited, actually from a kid to kid, so to say, from a child to child, or even in adults, unless destroyed, they could be repaired. When we came 98 to Grand Rapids, there were easily 10 shoe repair shops besides those inside Mahar retail stores. Imagine now if you have 3 actually that are still around,
I can think of one.
So yes, so that's the thing. So what attracts me on it is, I guess I'm coming back to the roots. When I was a little kiddo and my father was repairing boots and shoes and leather goods and soccer balls and gloves for the small village I come from of 1,200 people, and the smell of leather and smell of glues, however strange it may be, and seeing that you bring something that is basically dead, not functional, right? Doesn't work, torn apart or not sticking together anymore, and after work of his labor, okay, the goods were restored back to its life. Yeah. And I'm telling you, it's exciting for me. It's exciting for me.
I hear something similar between your discussion of how excited you get to be able to serve particular people, and in your answer about making things, especially making things here and having direct interaction with the things that you're making that you might not get when things are made halfway across the world. And the thing that I see across both of those, I would describe as it gives you the ability to have a sort of responsiveness. You can respond as the maker. I can respond to this material. I can respond to this machine. I can respond at every aspect of the making. But in the same way, when I'm here serving people who are closer to me, I can respond to their needs. I can respond to this market or that particular person's foot. That's the thing that I think, even though it's not until right now that I wouldn't have used this language, I think this is exactly the sort of thing that I was immediately very excited about when I first came here last year, was this notion that, like, so for the people who are listening, like, I have a pair of your boots and I love them. They're just great. And the thing that I walked away from was not just how much I loved the boots when I first had them on, but was you looked at both of my feet specifically, and you were making all these. You were responding to like my feet, right, and saying, "Oh, and now here's what we're going to do with your boots." And that type of responsiveness doesn't seem to be something that if someone is designing something in the Midwest and they're sourcing materials from Brazil and they're manufacturing in Asia, whatever like that, you just lose that responsiveness, don't you? You can't respond to things that way.
Yes, you scale it up, and I've experienced it. They're Wolverine, a great company, no grudges, but obviously they learn how to scale things up. Towards the end of my work there were minimums set for each stock number, each model, in its color version and in its soft toe or safety toe version. And when I heard the numbers, I won't say what it was. I said, yeah, I guess there is room for me. I don't need thousands of pairs to start with. I can serve basically those markets and that distribution that is limited by the big corporations who go after mass distribution. Early on, we focused, and we still, can only play with the so-called moms and pops retailers. And as you say, there is a connectiveness to all this.
Yeah.
So I know who's getting my boots, and at the same time, he knows me. There is a, if he's not happy, he will let me know, and he will not tell others, or he will have negative feedback. I had better know. When you're part of a big company, it's calculated, in percents or fractions of percents, how many returned boots and shoes you will receive. That's calculated into the price. And obviously, things can happen whether you're a big company making millions and selling millions of pairs, and a small company that makes thousands of them. Still, that the customer directly gives you sense of more responsibility, and at the same time more appreciation. Why? You're part of a big company. That company decides that instead of selling a particular shoe for $99, they will do a flash sale online for $69, $59, etc. And then they sell, to a number of folks. How do you know them? And you decide if you want to keep this. Many of the boots I should do, every single one, but many I just bless, especially for online customers whom I had no interaction with. We do have online sales for us. It's a small fraction of our overall business, but most people, actually some people do call us and find out how does it fit and what can you recommend, but many just place an online order. I've never met them, never seen them, don't know how the boots will fit. I bless them, saying, Lord, hope they fit them and they work for them. And in my view, we should, each of us, what we do, we should bless, what we do, whether it's service or a product that we actually, serve others. I mean, that should be, the main thing, for us. And I don't want to sound preachy, but that's what's inside, of me that I try and actually show through the boots, that we make. Again, may not work 100%, but the striving to, that gives you so much satisfaction that, when you're part of a corporation where that it's, really literally about numbers, and in those numbers, even mistakes, are calculated for, okay? Here, it's a different approach, so I like that personal connection very much. Very much.
Well, why don't you, before we end here, why don't you tell people how can people find you, and where do they get your boots, and what would you like them to know about your boot company? How can they buy a pair of Liberty boots, which are just fantastic?
We are still a small family-owned shoe factory, making a couple thousand pairs a year, but what we lack in size, we make up in focus on what we do. So oftentimes we actually ship 2 sets of footbeds with the pair of boots bought online, or sometimes people just call us. And so we try and help and say, if you have any issues with our boots, tell us. If you have no issues, tell everybody else. So Liberty Footwear, here a shop on Alpine Avenue, Lower Alpine Avenue in Grand Rapids, Michigan, near Richmond Park, online at libertyfootwear.com. And we do have a Facebook page, even Instagram page, and sometimes customers actually respond, to it. We do have some radio stations that speak about us regularly. I won't mention, but for local West Michigan listeners, they will know. And then we actually realized that when we ship our boots to certain retail location, that we do get online orders from the place where people would normally, or could buy our boots, but the retailer, for example, doesn't carry full range of what we do. As I mentioned before, we started with 7 boots, and now we have 70 or 80 actually combinations of the same upper on different outsole, different colors that we added, over time. And because we can resole, we can make even new boots with an outsole that we have 10, 12 different varieties of outsoles. We started with one outsole in 2 colors. Now we have injected outsoles, 4 colors, and then we have 3 different unit outsoles that we actually cement on the uppers. So and then we are looking at other options. I mean, to be honest, so many opportunities that exist that people bring. We value that immediate interaction with the customers who say, can you tighten it, or can you stretch this, or can you open it up, or can you actually make this piece a little larger, or can you swap the eyelet for a speed hook, and can I get longer laces because I like tying double knot in my laces, and all this we can do. And hopefully that service, that attention means something for the local customers, and including actually online customers. So we're here Monday through Saturday, and again, I know that number of stores, consumer goods stores, are open on Sundays, and could we get some business? Maybe, but we would go crazy and we would totally lose sense of what we are here for. We do need to connect with the Lord and with the family on Sunday. So we are closed then, but hopefully we can help one of the listeners as well.
As always, thanks for listening, everyone. Summer has kicked off here at Harmel Academy of the Trades, and we are getting ready for our next class of students coming this fall. If you know any young men looking to start a life in the skilled trades, send them our way at harmelacademy.org. If you want to hear more of Working Man, please subscribe to Harmel's socials on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. And also, if you want a good pair of work boots, head over to libertyfootwear.com. Peter's boots, I've got a pair. They're the most comfortable boots I've ever had. They're well made. They're very reasonably priced. You're going to love them, and you're going to love working with Peter. So go take care of your soles. Give Peter a call. Head over to libertyfootwear.com. Hey, thanks again to everyone for listening, and we'll see you soon.